Hello, and welcome to my review of Fede Alvarez's attempt at making an alien film, Alien Romulus. I think the best possible review I can give this film is my first knee-jerk reaction to it. Went to see it with a friend, came out of the cinema, and just trying to formulate my thoughts, the only thing I could really say was, I think I hated that. And anyone who knows me knows I don't really hate films. If I don't like a film, I don't like a film. I never say I hate that film or that film's dog shit or that's terrible. It's very rare for me, and I do kind of curate what I watch. I usually kind of go for stuff that I know I'll be interested in, or kind of a lot of classic films, world cinema. And I go to see the films that I'm intrigued by, and it's kind of in the wheelhouse of what I enjoy. An alien movie is in the wheelhouse of what I would enjoy, but this, yeah, I think I hated Alien Romulus. I'd need to see it again, but the reason I hated it, and I said this too, coming out of the cinema that night, I think I hated that because 70% of it was fucking great, but that other 30% is just so offensive to me that I think it kind of cancels out the rest, and the fact that it was so close to being great offends me. And it's going to be a spoiler-filled video, so, hold on to your butts. It's been out long enough now, I think, and people have talked about this particular element of the film, but it's not just that. So the story, I mean, when it was first announced, I thought, oh, cool, another Alien film. Watched the trailer, and I was like, oh, it just looks like a pastiche of the first two films. Right down to the woman coming out of the elevator with the pulse rifle and the smoke, and I'm like, okay, I get it, Ripley, but like, do we really need to telegraph this to that degree? That like, hey, remember the other film? Like, okay. I thought, well, maybe it's the marketing, right? Okay, and then I heard that it was a standalone film. Okay, all right. And it just seemed like, okay, people on the space station, there's an alien, there's face huggers, it just seems like a redo. And one thing I've always loved about the Alien franchise and the series as a whole is that it always kind of does something different. Alien, the original, like, haunted house in space, it's that kind of the horror, the tension, the kind of cat and mouse game between this crew and this unstoppable alien, right? Aliens takes it to a whole other level. I still feel like Aliens is a horror film and is horrific in its own way, but it is more of an action film, more of a kind of, a pulsating kind of, thrill ride in a sense. Did something a bit different with it, but also imbued more of a deeper thematic arc for the main character and more emotion, with the storyline with Ripley and Newt and the kind of the maternal love going on in that film. Alien 3, pure nihilism, just a complete just descent into hell. You couldn't get any wildly different than Alien 3. And I have conflicting feelings about that film still to this day. Alien Resurrection, it's just campy, goofy, fun, that is really dark and twisted and like grimy. It's just like a grimy film, it's slimy and oddly sexual, and I say oddly sexual, that's been baked into the franchise from the beginning in Giga, but there's differences. Prometheus is it's just completely different, and I love how bold it is in that sense that it is an alien film, but it isn't an alien film, and I love that about it. I love just the mic drop of the opening scene of this is how life on Earth was created. I just love that stuff. But there's things I don't like about all of them. Post 1986. I think Alien is a masterpiece. I think Aliens is a masterpiece. I think Alien is probably a slightly better film. But then, as I grow older, I think that the emotional resonance in Aliens makes it better too. So I don't know. But either way, they're two untouchable films. Alien 3, Resurrection, Prometheus, Covenant, they all have issues, but they all have great strengths too. Covenant, I loved. I thought it was a great gothic, eerie horror film. But the last 10 minutes, just, again, we've got to go to the blowing the alien out of the airlock. We see from the POV of the alien's head inside it. Nah, I didn't like that stuff. The very final moment is fine and fun, but and I wish it had led somewhere. you know. But I like things about all of them, and I love the franchise. But with Romulus, I was worried that it was going to be a retread, and it was going to be the modern. It was going to fall into that modern trap of, hey, remember this, you know. And then the reviews came out. Although I should say the influencer comments came out. It seems to be the trend now where they'll bring together a group of influencers and say like tweet about it afterwards, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's amazing!" You know, that third act. Whoa, you won't believe the ending. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then the reviews come in, and it's fairly positive. And the promotion is built around like, look how much effort we put into the set design and production design. It's real sets, you know. And like, look how kind of out, you know. It's funny to me how what was normally just the way you made movies, which is building sets and doing practical stuff, is now like seen as like going to the extra effort and the extra mile. But they showed like, you know, they've puppeteered full xenomorphs, and like there's practical creatures and stuff. So they lean into it, and that stuff I thought, okay, cool, you know. So I go into the film, and I'm still like, I don't know, man. The trailers were not promising. Watched the film, and again I just came out feeling like most of that was great. You know, and the fact that it actually was part of the franchise in terms of the timeline. It's set between Alien and Aliens, and it kind of matches the aesthetic of that, from like the worn down computers and stuff on the space station, and the design of it, and the fact that it's Weyland Yutani. So it's permissible that all this stuff looks and feels like the first two films. I can roll with that. And the practical stuff, the creatures, some of the new things we saw, like the xenomorph and like the sack and stuff, and lots of, yeah. I just liked the ways in which we would see new things in different ways, and the practical effects that were used to achieve those things. And so I was like, yeah, that's I love all that stuff. The characters I really enjoyed, you know. So we have Kaylee Spaney's character, Rain, I believe, and her brother Andy, who is not really her brother, but he is a synthetic that her father created to look after her. And I love that as just an idea and a pairing, and the fact that she loves this thing even though it's not really her brother. And he acts very strange because he's not, you know, fully programmed and stuff, but he likes dad jokes, and that's kind of part of her father that's left inside it. I think that it's really fertile ground for like great storytelling, and a lot of that is in the film. And I love their relationship, and I think the actor who played Andy was great, especially when he kind of has to kind of change his character in a way when a chip gets put in that kind of, you know, makes him different. And I thought all that stuff was great. And the idea of one of the women in the crew was like, you know, banging on the door to get out, and you see the xenomorph behind her, and it's like the more extreme version of that scene in the original Alien, where Ripley's like, "Well, I can't let you come in because of the potential contamination." And you know, yeah, that was just like gripping stuff. Third act was like, again, okay, fine. It's the fourth time now where we've done the blow. No, it'll be Aliens, Alien Resurrection, kind of. Covenant. So it's like the fifth time now in the series that we've done the blow it out of the airlock at the end ending. But to be fair, the way that it's done in this film, with like the ship going down to the rings of the planet, and the beautiful imagery, and just that whole, you know, where you see, again, it's just doing things we haven't seen before. To see a woman give birth, you know, to this thing, like the natural way, was so unsettling. And to see that it had mixed with the human DNA and the little egg and just the human face inside, oh god, it's so creepy. And then when you see this kind of whatever you would call it, you know, this new version, this kind of human xenomorph, which, yeah, people say it's like Alien Resurrection, but it is different and very creepy. And the guy that got to play this thing, I mean, Jesus Christ, was he made to be in a horror movie. And it was just, you know, captivating when you first saw a glimpse of him. I think maybe you say a bit too much of him, but obviously it's like the engineer. And I love that it tied into Prometheus and Covenant, you know, and I just thought that whole sequence at the end was done so well. But here's the things I hate about the film. All the callbacks. Just not necessary. When Andy jumps down on the alien and saves his sister, and he's like, "Get away from her." you bitch. I literally just went like that. You could hear my hand hit my forehead in the cinema. I just thought, come on. You know, this isn't a series where you do that. This isn't Star Wars where it's a fairy tale and it's fantastical and magical, and you can have the characters say, I got a bad feeling about this in every movie because you know it's a different feel. The Terminator series got ridiculous, you know, by the third one. Talk to the hand, you know. Even in the first film, I'll be back. You know, it becomes a way where you can get away with kind of repeating lines and stuff. But I feel like Alien is like hard sci-fi, and all of it is like plausible. That's what makes it, you know, like you can have cloning and things like that, but it's always grounded in some form of reality, I feel like, and that's what makes that series really special. But I don't know. Like there could be a creature out there that's like that. You know what I mean? There's nothing in an Alien film that feels, well, I mean, there's little, leaps of logic perhaps, you know, when Ripley opens the the airlock in Aliens, and when she's holding on by her arms, which would just get ripped off if it was real and she was holding all that weight. But you know, those are like kind of movie things that you let go, but there's always some sort of internal logic that grounds it and makes it feel, as real as it can. And I just feel like characters calling back to lines from other movies for no reason is literally just like Fede Alvarez kind of, or in this case, maybe Ridley Scott, pausing the movie in the cinema. Ridley Scott's head comes out and goes, "Now, guys, you know you're watching a movie, yeah? Just so you're all aware that, forget that you're getting absorbed into this world. Just look around you, okay? Now remember that you're watching a film on a screen, and remember the other movie, yeah? So think about the other film while you're watching this. Forget about what's going on the screen here. Just remember that you're watching a movie. Don't get too wrapped up in it or anything, or believe in the world. Just remember you're watching a film that's part of a series. Remember with Ripley when she said, "Get away from me, you bitch." So just think about that, okay? And a little bit of applause, maybe give a few cheers and whoops, but, just remember you're watching a movie. That's what it feels like. I was saying to my friend, like, they could have worked in even, because the character of Andy, he doesn't swear. So you could maybe say that, oh, well, he's programmed not to swear because her dad doesn't want, he's a bad influence on her or whatever. So he literally cannot swear by design. And she takes the chip out and puts it back in. And so you could, and at one point she says, "I'm changing your prime directive to do what's best for Rain, to do what's best for us." And that kind of gives him a bit more autonomy, I felt like. I like that as an idea, that she essentially ordered him to be more open, really, with his programming. And that could have included swearing, and that could have at least explained the payoff of him saying, "Get away from me, you bitch," But it didn't, and it was just a kind of, self-serving and fan-serving moment. But I feel like even people who love this film thought that line was a bit too much. But I can even go to the end where she says, "This is Rain so-and-so, last survivor of the so-and-so, signing off." It's just calling back to Ripley. Again, it's banging me on the fucking head and reminding me that I'm watching a film. I want to be in it. I want to just be in the moment, in the story. That does not accomplish that. That goes, remember in Alien when she said that? Remember that in Aliens when she said that, Well, no, she didn't say in Aliens even. She just said it in Alien, and then they call back to it in the third film, which is appropriate for tying up the story of Ripley, right? It just drives me nuts, because it just doesn't need to be there. But it is. And I feel like, and this is a common working theory, that Ridley Scott kind of got his fingers in this. And I feel like maybe, because the story is that Fede Alvarez pitched this story that he created, and they agreed to make it. And I feel like Ridley was like, well, hang on a minute. Let me tie it into Prometheus and Covenant, which I'm fine with. But let me tie it into the original as well, and let's put in all these callbacks so people know that it's tied to the other movies, and let's put Ian Holm in it. You fucking kidding me? Seriously. When I saw that character on the ground, and I thought, oh, it's going to be Ash, isn't it? Of course, it wasn't. It's Rook. It's a new character. If you're going to go to all the trouble of having this new character called Rook, with the likeness of Ian Holm, and people say, well, he would have been that looked like the same model from Alien because of the time period. Fine, whatever. It's permissible that it would have looked like Ian Holm. Doesn't mean you have to do it. Doesn't mean it needs to be him. And this bullshit that they're saying in the interviews, like, well, Lance Henriksen got to do it twice, and Michael Fassbender got to do it twice. So we felt like Ian Holm really needed to do it twice. Well, he doesn't. He's dead. Call Winona Ryder. She only got to do it once, right? There's no rule. There's not like a rule of twos. Like only two there. Like I don't understand this weird bullshit excuse of we felt like Ian really deserved to have a second chance. No, he did. It's not him. It's another actor with an AI, morphed voice on top of it, and I could deal with it. I could go along with it even. His family said it's fine, right? It's approved with the estate. But it was the way that they did it. With a deep fake that looked so bad. I can't believe that anyone would work on that and think, yeah, that looks good, and then send it to the studio and not be just ashamed of themselves. And I don't know how anyone, from producers to Ridley Scott, 20th Century, Disney, whoever, and the director himself, Fede Alvarez, would look at the shots that were coming in of this deepfake Ian Holm and think to themselves, yeah, that looks good, let's put it in the movie, and not be embarrassed that final product is out there for people to see. I mean, people say, well, it doesn't look that bad, and he's supposed to be all messed up anyway. Yeah, but it doesn't look real. Everything in that film was striving to achieve a level of tactile tangibility, real sets, real creatures, and it all worked. And it did throw back to what made those original films so great, and it did make a difference. And that just shat over all of it, because he isn't just in one scene, he's in the whole movie. He's the villain, he's the antagonist. And I've heard people say, well, at least when you see his face on like a digital screen, it's kind of... No, even then it looked like shit. It's just that when you see it up close, oh God, did it look bad. And they just kept cutting back to it. And it's the mouth. Look at them. You cannot look at the mouth of what they did here with this character and tell me it looked good, or that it looked suitably messed up for the android that's been ripped up. No. What they should have done, if they were going to do this and use Ian Holm's likeness, which they didn't need to do and they shouldn't have done, but if they were going to, if they were so hell-bent on doing this, they should have done an animatronic. It worked for fucking Lance Henriksen in the 90s. 30 years ago. They did a great job in Alien 3. It's just an animatronic, and it looks like him, and it's messed up, and it works. And you can do the AI voice, and it's warbled, and so that kind of masks some of the uncanny elements of the voice, but no, and from a wide shot, you could see it was an animatronic, or like at least a puppet. It looked good. But they cut up close to the face, and I honestly, the first whole spiel he gave about the xenomorph, I didn't catch half of it. And I came away from the film feeling like, well, they should have explained what happened with the original Alien. They do, I just didn't catch any of it because I was aghast at what I was seeing in front of me. I couldn't believe that they approved that, and that it was in an actual film, and that it jarred so just drastically with all of the other look of the film. From the sets to the production design, the creatures all looked real. Even when it was CGI, it looked very great. I'm sure there was CGI augmentation on the creatures at sometimes, and then the space effects and everything. But like this one glaring thing was so glaring, and it just did not stop. And again with the lines, a perfect organism. I get it. He said that in the first film. And I've heard defenses of that saying, well, that's something that his programming would say. Okay, how about the line when he says, I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathy. Like, just lift the whole script from Alien, I mean, just line after line after line. And again, the whole line of like, this is Rain, last survivor, signing off. Ripley said that in the original because she's a flight officer. And she had the wherewithal to leave this message, for the company. And because she's an official person. And you could see throughout the film that she was a by-the-book, flight officer. So she would leave that and say, this is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo, signing off. Rain is just like a manual laborer. Why would she do that? There is no reason. It's just to go, ding, 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 remember the first one. Had to plug in the charger of the camera. And with the deepfake thing, we saw this with Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian Season 2, I think it was. Mark Hamill's likeness used with deepfake technology. Now, again, to anyone who might not know what it is, deepfake technology is when a deep learning algorithmic program is fed, ideally hundreds and thousands of images of an actor from all different, kind of angles. And it then kind of, puts the face onto another face and tries to match it and make it look like it's that person. And it wasn't great, it wasn't terrible, but it was a bit unconvincing and stiff. And I think within 48 hours after that Mandalorian episode came out, someone on YouTube had done their own version using a deepfake program, and it was so much better. And that person was then hired by Lucasfilm to work on the next time they did it in the Book of Boba Fett, and it looked so much better. And I still think the voice is a bit off with the AI technology there. It worked very well with James Earl Jones's voice in Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show. They used AI for the voice there, because it's kind of a robotic voice. It kind of worked, for the most part. But, this was 5 years ago. And if they can't find someone who is up to speed with deepfake technology, then I don't know what they were doing. And I'm actually looking forward to see if a fan does their own version of it, but better. But also, it's meant to look like Ian Holm in Alien 1979. There's not a lot of great reference material for that, aside from the movie itself and maybe some production stills. I think that's why it looks so bad. Now, there are times when maybe the top half from the eyes to the hair looks decent, but everywhere below and the mouth, it just looks terrible, and it just was wonky. And here's the thing, like, you're dealing with a character from a film that is so beloved, that is almost 50 years old now. You've really got to get that right when it is just an iconic character and like an iconic likeness of this character. You really need to get it right. But it's not just that either. It's the legacy of a beloved actor, a storied actor in Ian Holm, who's dead now, and if you're going to resurrect him digitally like this, you have to get it perfect or near perfect. And this it wasn't even near good, right? It was just abysmal, honestly. And I really am not doing this for effect or just trying to grub for views and be like, I hated it, because I'm not that kind of person. I'm really not. And look at my channel, the majority of the videos, I just talk about stuff I like. And there was a lot to like in Romulus, but I feel like Ridley got involved and was like, well, put this in there, and what are you going to say when it's Ridley Scott, And he wants to kind of tie it into this and tie it into that. And I had no problem with the Prometheus, the Black Goose stuff tying into it, though it's a bit weird that, David spent 10 years kind of developing that stuff, by the time we saw him in Covenant, and then this Rook character kind of whips it up, very quickly. But regardless, one thing I found kind of funny was the whole auto-aim thing, where Rain gets the pulse rifle, but don't worry about the fact that you've not fired a weapon before. It's got auto-aim on it, so it'll just manually go to... automatically, not manually, but, That felt like, so again, it took me out of it because I could just see a writer's room where people were like, well, we don't want the fans to get mad online and say that she's a Mary Sue and that she wouldn't know how to use a gun. So let's put in like a scene where they explain that the gun will just fire at the targets by itself. She just has to pull the trigger, you know. It was a unique sequence where she's, you know, and you see it, but like it just felt like it was there so people wouldn't whine. And again, that's where you're catering to an audience rather than just trying to tell your story. Yeah, if you can hear my stomach rumbling, that's it. It's my stomach rumbling. I don't have a a gestating xenomorph inside me. Although I wish I did. Just put me on my fucking misery right now. Yeah, man, it's just a shame because I love Alien. I really do. It's such a great series. And I just feel like they dropped the ball on this one massively because there was so much that was great about it. And I'll probably grow to enjoy watching it more in the future, you know. But I feel like there's maybe a fan edit out there that might just vastly improve this film by, for one thing, just making Ian Holm look, you know, at least passable. But I do feel like the central conceit of the film, which is that these kids get kind of stuck on this space station and it's filled with these aliens that came from the original xenomorph from 1979's Alien, which was drifting off in space, and then a ship found it and pulled it in, and that's where it all went tits up, because that's quite literally what the film is. I feel like it is dredging up the corpse of the original film, and that is its own downfall, I feel like. And I even like that whole scene where they pull in the kind of the fossilized thing, and you know, it's very cool visual, and I don't even mind the idea of it, and the idea that this thing, you know, would of course still survive in space, but yeah, it was more than a bridge too far for me in that sense, and I do need to reassess it and watch it again. But I just feel like I'll be taken completely out of the film again when Rook comes on screen, and it's a shame because I like the idea of Andy and kind of the, you know, the interplay there where he kind of gets corrupted by the Rook character. That works. I mean, again, it's not like it's the worst thing in the world to do that, but it could have been David. What if it was David who was there? Like, I don't know. I mean, that would have been maybe, you know, would feel shoehorned in there, but at the same time, it just feels wrong. The whole AI resurrection thing. Like, just use another actor, or do an animatronic at least, so it doesn't. It's glaringly just bad. I just don't know how anyone looked at that and thought, yeah, that's going to be in the film. Multiple people, hundreds of people looked at that and were like, yeah, that's great. And they're out of their fucking minds, you know. Or most people were like, Jesus Christ, this is really bad. Hi Ridley, it's brilliant, great idea, you know. Fucking hell. That probably is what happened, right? Ridley was probably like, oh, that looks brilliant, that does. And Fede Alvarez is like, oh my god, why me? No, he's loving it, you know, you can tell he's loving it, and, you know, in the press and everything, but oh man, yeah, it's a shame, and I really think that the whole, you know, the offspring at the end was great. You know, I just thought that, and the sequence was fantastic, and there's great stuff in the film. You know, the look of it is great. I really like the two main characters. The rest are kind of fodder, fine, but you know, and the opening scene on this planet. Oh, fucking great stuff. You know, the cinematography, the feel, the world. It was almost like the first 10 minutes reminded me of Blade Runner, just in terms of like a complete world that you believe in. And, you know, just Rain waking up in her little kind of quarters and stuff, and going with her brother through the crowd and trying to kind of, you know, kind of put in her chips to leave the planet and stuff. It's just lots of little things like that. I feel like the pacing, though, was an issue as well. I feel like they're like, okay, the station's going to crash in 20 minutes, and maybe it was 30 minutes. And I just felt like it was way too short of a time period. And then the characters are sitting around just waiting for the, oh, we'll turn the temperature down. They're just hanging around. The urgency wasn't there when the time frame was quite short. You know, we go down into the hive of the aliens. It's like, holy shit, and there's xenomorphs coming out. And Rain and Andy run to the end, and then it's like a dead end. Well, not a dead end, but they can't get through the door. And then they just, oh, I guess we'll just sit down, tell some jokes. You know, like the xenomorphs are right there, like in the corridor. And they're just kind of like, yeah, well, I mean, they've resigned themselves to their fate, but it just feels like the constant urgency was gone, which was key to all the other films. And as luck would have it, my camera memory card ran out, and I don't feel like it's worth starting a whole new memory card just for like the roundup of this. I mean, I could talk more about it, but you know, did I really hate Romulus? No. I just felt like it was such a missed opportunity, and I'm really disappointed in it, and intrigued to see it again. But I just, all my issues with it stand, and I just really hate this modern trend of like, we have to tie everything back. We have to keep calling back and reminding the audience of the other films when it isn't necessary. And the film was just laden with that. At kind of, it almost felt like, test audience kind of mandated every 20 minutes, let's have a reference, you know. And it didn't serve the film well, and so much great work went into it, from the acting performances to the production design, the score. But then even then, the score felt like, you know, hey, remember this Jerry Goldsmith stuff? Like, so, you know, mixed bag. Maybe I'll revisit it when it comes out and do a reappraisal and make another video where I can actually talk on camera for the whole thing. You're fine with the audio. We'll just end it here, I guess. And it's like the film, trying to kind of again just remind you of all the other movies. I feel like this video has exhausted itself too. So thank you for watching, and in this case listening. Let me know your thoughts down below of how much you love the film and how wrong I am, and keep it civil in the comments, please. But I will see you, and you will hear me in the next one.